Hey gang, what's up? Um, this is a follow-up vlog of sorts to the recent vlog I did about teaching at my university and the oral exam, the interview test I gave as part of my students' final exam. So this is the final exam I gave. Um, and basically I have freshmen and sophomores. At my university, English is mandatory for all first and second year students, and then they're done. So it's kind of like GE, we would say in the States, general education. It's a GE requirement that they take English. Um, and then they only would continue to take English or take elective English if they're going to maybe be an English teacher or do something where they feel in the business world where they would need English. So there are standard English classes just like at any college. We call it workshop and communication. Workshop is the freshman, communication is the Ninense, and then there's advanced writing, advanced communication, working with English and computers. There's all kinds of other English classes here at my university. But I only teach, for now, I only teach the standard English classes. And as most of you know, if you watch the vlog regularly, I came in the sort of, if you want it, the school year is two terms. There's the term from when we start in April until summer vacation, so it ends in July. And then there's the term from October when classes resume until final exams in February. So I taught from that second term, October to February, and I inherited the class from the woman who recommended me for the job, and I took over her position. So and she was a foreign teacher as well from Canada, and so I really, the syllabus was hers, the textbook was hers, the format of the class was all hers. So the thing that you guys responded to when I asked in the previous video is, would you like to know a little bit more about the grammar that I'm teaching the university level students? So I'm going to focus on that. I can certainly talk more about general teaching at the university level, and people have asked me lots of comments. So maybe I'll do that in a future vlog. But this is the textbook I was using, World English 2. This is the student edition, comes with a CD-ROM, and World English 3. And this is my teacher edition. So it's a little bit bigger, and there's more information in it, of course, to help me plan lessons, etc. As you can see, it's put out by the National Geographic. So just thumbing through the pages, it's really a lot of pictures, of course, content, but there's not a lot of what I call drawing. There's not a lot of Japanese textbooks that are EFL textbooks that are marketed to the Asian market have a lot of drawings in them because Japanese students are so used to learning through manga or manga-like style. And this being based on a very famous magazine that's famous for its pictures of far off places when we're in the United States. The book is basically made up of these types of photos. And I think the students responded to that when I asked them to leave me comments at the end of the year on the back of their final exam. A lot of them commented about how much they enjoyed the text, the pictures, etc. There's listening stuff that comes with it, and a video, which is a little different than a lot of other textbooks. Kind of like an on-locational National Geographic video. So we were learning about, let's see what our video was in Unit 4. We were learning about the body. And so our video was just about the human body. And, there's all this kind of stuff you can do before and after you watch, and discussions. And then the one in Unit 6 was kind of interesting. It was like we were talking about transitions. So birthdays, etc. And this was about a wedding, a Nubian wedding. So they went on location to the part of Egypt and in Africa, and followed a groom and a bride around and about their wedding, and 5 or 6 minutes with subtitles. There's like English voiceover, and of course the authentic language of whoever's speaking at the camera. Um, so those were fairly popular as well. So that's a little bit about the book I was using. So I prefaced and tell you about that because uh, the grammar that I taught wasn't really there wasn't any master plan to it, or any huge forethought on my part when I started the class in October. The grammar was dictated by the book. The book goes along and is definitely aimed at uh, English as a second language learners, but they chose the grammar. So and it's all laid out for you in this chart here at the beginning of the book. And what I did was my predecessor taught unit 1, 2, and 3, and there's 12 units in each of these books. And I knew I wasn't going to get through. She only got through 3 in her time. I knew I'd probably only get through 3, maybe 4 if I went fast, but I didn't. So I went with unit 4, the next one, and then I kind of started skip around. I went to unit 6, and then for the final unit, I went to unit 10, which is about traveling, because so many of college students like to travel if they can, even if it's just somewhere local for us in Japan, like Korea or China or the Philippines or Hawaii. But I have students going to Australia and England, etc., during spring vacation. So I thought that would be helpful. So for instance, the grammar in that travel unit was modals of necessity. I must make a reservation. You must not take pictures here. That was the grammar they suggested, and so I taught whatever grammar was in the book. Now, when I designed my new class for April for a whole year, because obviously I'm going to be teaching again, and I'll be able to design my syllabus from scratch. It's been interesting as I've been talking to some of the other teachers who are all more experienced than I am at this level of teaching. And really, they don't emphasize grammar much in their classes. It really seems to be we want to give them the ability to use, in their first year when they first come, all Japanese students have been studying English for 6 years. They took it all 3 years of junior high and all 3 years of high school. Obviously, depending on what kind of high school they went to, maybe more rigorous than others, but they've all been studying it for quite a while. And we want to give them the tools to actually use that English. That's one of our main goals. We want to get them reading, because reading is just so important for language acquisition, sorry. And we want to get them speaking. And we want to improve their vocabulary. So, I was talking, we had a faculty meeting the other day, and we were discussing which book we were going to use, and we're actually we divide the kids by level, and there's 5 levels based on some placement tests, etc. So, for instance, I was teaching the second to lowest level this past year, and I believe I'll be teaching that again in April. And so I was like, well, what book are you guys going to use? I like this National Geographic book, but to be honest, it was a little difficult. And so talking to them, we've all decided to use the same book for our Ichinense, which I think will let us share ideas and lesson plans. And, we have a computer network here at school where we do stuff online. And I think that'll be a good thing. So I'm going to use a totally different book. So it'll be first for me, but other teachers that I'll be working with have used it before. And it's made with the Asian, China, Korea, Japan language learner of English in mind. So not that there's translations into Japanese, etc. in the book, but it's perhaps, I don't know how that will be different. I'll experience that as I go along. But the one thing that came out of those meetings I've had recently with these other teachers is they don't teach a lot of grammar. They don't, they teach it as it comes up, as it's necessary, but they don't emphasize it and they don't test it very much. They're much more interested in getting the kids working with partners, working in groups, giving presentations, speaking, communicating. they've had so much writing and grammar translation from whatever high school they came from that they feel like now at the university level they want to emphasize different skills. We have certainly want to reinforce the four basic skills: reading, writing, speaking, listening. Um, but we want to make English class here at the university much different than what they most likely had at their Japanese high school. So having said that, it's my approach to grammar is going to change. But some of you wanted to know what I tested, um, so I'm going to tell you. But I just want to say it with the caveat that I didn't. This wasn't like it's some overarching guideline. No other teacher in the school probably tested these same grammar points. It's just me because of what I got from these particular books. So we'll start with my freshman, okay, and I'll thumb through the test here real quick, and I'll just tell you some of the things that they had to know. So in the first thing we talked about comparatives. I want to make sure I use the right grammar term. So we talked about EST ending words: longest, shortest, quickest, and superlatives, which those are superlatives, sorry. Comparatives: is longer than, is taller than, is more interesting than. And equatives: so your heart is as large as your fist, because we were studying the body in this. The skin is the body's largest organ. The small intestine is longer than the large intestine. Okay, so we did those kind of things. So I gave them simple fill in the blanks. Oh no, fill in the blanks, but multiple choice fill in the blanks. Ooh, really didn't know. It was really easy. I tried not to, it's a 100-point test, but I tried to make it as easy as I could. The average turned out to be about 77, 78. So most of my kids did well. Today's English class was blank than yesterday's class. A, more interesting. B, most interesting. C, the most interesting. D, boring. So they had to choose, of course, more interesting. The cafeteria serves the blank katsukuri for lunch every day. These are questions that I wrote, of course. A, best. B, good. C, more delicious. D, deliciouser. A word I made up. So they had to pick best. Disneyland is blank USJ. As fun as, worse, funner, funniest. So I didn't make it too hard, but they had to pick that. The next was simple vocabulary. We had vocabulary, with the body. So I gave them either the Japanese or the English definition, and then they had to write in the correct word in English. So onaka, they had to know that was stomach, or shinzo, they had to know that was heart. A pain in your head is a headache. The outer covering of the body is skin. The interesting thing here in the answers that I got was spelling. I didn't take off for spelling. If I could tell what it was in the context of what we were studying, I gave them the credit. But so one of the questions was hone, H-O-N-E in Japanese, which is bone, your bones in English. And I got a lot of B-O-R-N, B-O-A-N, really weird spellings for bone. Artery was another one. Stomach, a lot of stomachs with an E at the end, because they learned stomach ache, A-C-H-E, and headache. So a lot of them spelled stomach with an E at the end. These kinds of things. So then we did transitions. So they had to talk about life stages: infancy, teenager, middle age, retired, senior citizen, and match it with the Japanese word for each. That was pretty easy. Then we did the correct verb form, and let me see what we were calling that. Sorry, thumb through here real quick. So it was really simple past tense, but I wanted to also give them a little bit of present perfect tense. So for instance, something that's happened in the past, I've already graduated from college. something that happened in the past that continues now. I've lived alone for 5 years now. Something that happened several times in the past, but the specific time is not important. I've seen that movie 3 times. Versus I graduated in 2005. That's simple past tense. I lived alone for 5 years. Now I live with, my roommate or my wife or something. So it was a simple, they had to underline the correct form of each verb. Shiho knew or has known her best friend since they have been in elementary school together. Okay, so part 3 was unscramble the sentences to make a conversation. Very common type of exercise where they give you all the words hash marked out, and you have to take them and rearrange them and make a sentence. My students did fairly well on that part. There were a few that were a little bit difficult. Okay, the part 4 was how questions. So using the word how to ask a question in response to information, usually with an adjective or adverb. My friend Lana is very tall. Okay, question, how tall is she? So they got a few of these right most of the time. I just found out that Mr. Sloan is very wealthy. How wealthy is he? But for instance, this one, my brother sings really badly. Okay, and the answer should be, how badly does he sing? But I got all kinds of answers like, how badly is he? How badly sings? It's just all kinds of weird responses for that one. I love to eat at Janie's house because she cooks so well. I got how good is she, which is sort of correct. I was very lenient on the grading. How well she cooks, without the does. How well does she cook is the right answer. So then I gave them some reading. They had to read a story and answer questions about it. They had to write an essay just from blank, but I gave them the prompt in our review session, so the better students were prepared. They had to, in Unit 10, they had to fill in a travel brochure because we talked about travel, so it was pretty easy just knowing, the difference between like relaxing vacation, learning vacation, adventure vacation, which I mentioned in the last video. Another way of doing kind of just simple vocabulary is writing a sentence in English, giving them the prompt in Japanese for the word, and then, I always take my laptop on trips in a small blank, and then in Japanese, te nimotsu, I have, and they have to take te nimotsu and write carry-on bag. Or you need to practice your English so you can call the hotel and make a blank for Golden Week, and the Japanese is yoyaku, which is the word for reservation. This was I got a lot of interesting response here in this grammar part. Your friend from Australia is coming to Japan for the first time to stay at your house with your family for spring vacation. What are some things you need to tell him or her about Japan or your home? Complete the sentences, use your own ideas. So this was in our final chapter, and let me just tell you what the official grammar was. Oh, this was the modals of necessity, modals of prohibition. So something's necessary, something's not necessary. I must make a reservation. I have to go get my passport. I don't have to get a vaccination. And the big hard part here was describing the difference between don't have to and must not. Like, you must not smoke here. There's a sign up that says it's dame, it's bad, okay? You can't smoke here. Versus you don't have to take off your shoes when you go to an American restaurant, okay? Yeah. So I basically gave them the prompts. That was the idea. Their friends coming to Japan for the first time. What can they tell them about their house or Japanese kind of culture? You have to, you can't, you must, you don't have to, you must not. So I got a lot of, you must say itadakimasu before you eat. And you can't wear your shoes in our house. And you don't have to speak Japanese well. But some of them, gave me some weird responses. But that was a grammar thing that we studied. There was some basic kind of just sort of colloquial English that I put on their test. For instance, in this class, we learned the word hassle. It's a hassle. Mendoksai. It's a hassle. And we learned the kind of response like, oh, I don't know about that. So I tested them on that. And then the last part was listening. So I played various things and they had to, check off if they heard the word, fill in the blank, or just fill it in without any multiple choice help. And then there was, so in addition to this, which was 90 points of written work, there was a 10-point, the oral interview, which I talked about. Okay, well, this is already 20 minutes. Let me just briefly go through here and tell you about some of the ninensei, the sophomore grammar. We talked about active to passive voice. So our teacher did not tell us about the quiz. And they had to change it to, we were not told about the quiz by our teacher. The whole agent of the action by somebody, is it necessary, is it not necessary to have that information? But they really just had to change it from active to passive. 2 teenagers wrote that book. That book was written by 2 teenagers. Toyota makes cars, that's active. Cars are made by Toyota, that's passive voice. So we did that. More vocab, matching the English word. They studied art in this class. So I had words like abstract, represent, realistic. They had to know from the Japanese given. We talked about clauses in this class. One unit we talked about adjective clauses. In a following unit we talked about noun clauses. So, sorry, I'm about to burp. It's really cold in this room. Combine the 2 sentences using an adjective clause. So they had to take the 2 sentences and make them 1 sentence. Shiho has 2 sisters. They are musicians. Those are the 2 sentences. So Shiho has 2 sisters who are musicians. They had to use like that, which, who to combine. They got most of them right. One of the ones that gave them problems, for instance, is this one. The teacher is from South Africa. Sentence 2. He lives near the station. So I got a lot of, the teacher is from South Africa who lives near the station. And that's not really correct. They had to take the one chunk and kind of insert it in the middle of the previous sentence. So the teacher who lives near the station is from South Africa. But yeah, most of them did fine. Hitoshi likes music. The music has a lot of drum and bass. Hitoshi likes music that has a lot of drum and bass. Pretty simple. The one they had a hard time was, everyone studied very hard. They all got good grades. That one gave them a lot of problems. I'm not going to tell you the right answer. If you really want to know, leave me a comment. They had to read this thing about Kahalo, the artist, and answer true-false questions. We talked about visual and auditory learning, kinesthetic learning, where you like do stuff. They had to do reported statements. So Jason, colon, the quote is, I love watching sumo. You can tell who wrote these. They had to write, the answer was in reported speech, he said he loves watching sumo. So Avril, I tried to make it clear whether it was a he or she. My new CD is really great. She said her new CD is really great. So they just had to keep the verb consistent. For instance, I took 2 answers for this one. Tom, I don't know how long I'll stay in Tokyo. He said he doesn't know how long he'll stay in Tokyo. He will and doesn't. Or he said he didn't know how long he would stay in Tokyo, where they're both kind of past tense. So, because you are talking about something that's already happened when somebody's already spoken. Anyway, let's see, the noun clause. So agriculture is interesting because you learn how things grow, and they had to underline how things grow. That's the noun clause, where a longer phrase is substituting for a noun. We are studying chemistry. Well, you take out chemistry and you put in the noun clause. We are studying how new chemicals are made in a laboratory. So how new chemicals are made in a laboratory, you have to underline that clause. Okay, and the last thing here is should have, should not have, could have, or would have. So should, could, would, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And this gave some of them a little bit of difficulty. I gave them the verb stem, eat, study, make, go, give, and they had to then take it and add should have, should not have as it was appropriate. So Brad failed his engineering exam yesterday. He blank more before he took the test. The answer is should have studied. Okay, um, that was not a good idea. Chris blank the spicy and hot curry so quickly. Now he has a stomachache. Should not have eaten. So I got a lot of should not have ate, or they didn't change the verb a lot of the times, and they just messed up on whether it was should or would. Could and would, obviously there's some leeway there, and I gave some leeway. And that's about it. So that's kind of some of the grammar I was teaching, but like I said, it's going to change in my new classes starting in April. I think I am going to do a lot more speaking and interacting, and I'll still have some vocabulary quizzes and stuff like that. But I'm going to I got kind of in trouble. Too many of my students had good grades. The supervising teacher that helped me enter my grades on the computer, so it all goes on the report cards. And I should talk all about grades in Japan because it's really interesting, and I will. I'll do another vlog about that. But she's like, Jason, too many of your students are getting really good grades. I'm like, well, I'm just such a good teacher. What can I do? They're so smart. What can I say? So. But anyway, we'll see if some of them level up, like my G2 kids go up to G3, or if they stay the same. But some of that's based on the TOEIC test that they take. All right, I got to get out of here. I got things to do tonight, and but thanks for watching. And I'm not sure when this is going to get posted, so whenever it is, I'm glad that you watched all the way to the end. And I had so many great comments from all of you that watched all the way to the end before. So. Poster behind me. Is that your favorite Star Wars movie? That's the question for the end of this vlog. Tell me what your favorite of the 6 Star Wars movies is. Okay, peace. See ya.